So the budget was released yesterday, and I thought I would read it for those who are interested but don't necessarily read the thing or want to read the thing or have noticed that it's quite long, so we're going to have to bear with each other. But this is just, I want to tell you, I am reading off of the BBC website. So it's just called Summary of Budget 2018, Key Points at a Glance. So obviously that means each point has a lot more to it than is being said. And I recommend if you're interested in any particular point that you go and look for further information, see what it might mean for you or those near to you, dear to you, or anything like that, as long as it has interest, perhaps give it some look in more. So Philip Hammond has delivered his third budget as Chancellor. Here are the key points of his 72-minute speech. So I don't know, many of you maybe watched the speech, but the first things on the budget are personal taxation and wages. So, first point, the personal allowance threshold, the rate at which people start paying income tax at 20%, to rise from 11,850 to 12,500 in April, a year earlier than planned. The higher rate income tax threshold, the point at which people start paying tax at 40%, to rise from 48,350 to 50,000 in April. After that, the two rates will rise in line with inflation. National living wage increasing by 4.9% from £7.83 to £8.21 an hour from April 2019. Tax rates and thresholds are different in Scotland. The Scottish Government's Finance Secretary Derek Mackay will set his plan for Scottish taxpayers on the 12th of December. Next one, alcohol, tobacco and fuel. Beer, cider and spirit duties to be frozen. Cost of bottle of wine duty to rise by 8% in line with inflation in February. Tobacco duty will continue to rise by inflation plus 2%. A packet of 20 cigarettes will go up by 33p at 6 o'clock. Presumably that's already happened. A 10-gram pack of cigars will go up by 17p. Fuel duty to be frozen for 9th year in a row. Remote gaming duty to increase to 21% for online gaming on games of chance for 2019. Stamp duty and housing. All first-time buyers purchasing shared equity homes of up to 500,000 will be eligible for first-time buyers relief. 500 million for the Housing Infrastructure Fund, designed to enable a further 650,000 homes to be built. Lettings relief limited to properties where the owner is in shared occupancy with the tenant. New partnerships with housing associations in England to deliver 13,000 homes. Guarantees of up to 1 billion for smaller house builders. Next one is welfare and pensions. So work allowances for universal credit to be increased by 1.7 billion. 2.4 million working families with children to benefit from £630 a year. An extra 1 billion to help welfare claimants transfer to the new consolidated benefit. Chancellor insists controversial system is here to stay. The state of the economy. I could do with some water. Era of austerity is finally coming to an end, the Chancellor says. Austerity, can I just tell you, is difficult economic conditions created by government measures to reduce public expenditure. That is a Google definition. So that's to end. 2018 growth forecast downgraded to 1.3% from 1.5% in March due to impact of bad spring weather. But forecast for 2019 raised from 1.3% to 1.6%, and annual forecasts raised to 1.4%, 1.4%, 1.5% and 1.6% in 2020, 2021, 2022 and 2023 respectively. 3.3 million more people to work since 2010 and 800,000 more jobs forecast by 2020. Wages growth at its highest in nearly a decade. The state of public finances. Public borrowing in 2018 to be 11.6 billion lower than forecast in March, representing 1.2% of the gross domestic product, GDP, the total value of goods produced and services provided. Borrowing as a share of GDP to rise to 1.4% next year. Borrowing to total 31.8 billion, 26.7 billion, 23.8 billion, 20.8 billion, and 19.8 billion in the next 5 years. Debt as share of GDP peaked at 85.2% in 2016 and 17, falling to 83.7% this year and to 74.1% by 2023-24. 1.2 annual average growth in departmental spending promised. Brexit. Extra 500 million for preparations for leaving the EU. Spring statement next March could be upgraded to full budget if needed. Oof. The 50p coin to mark the UK's departure for a commemorative 50p coin to mark the EU's departure, the UK's departure from the EU. A commemorative 50p coin to mark the EU's. A commemorative 50p coin to mark the UK's departure from the EU. A commemorative 50p coin. Defence and Security. An extra 160 million for counter-terrorism police. An extra 1 billion for armed forces, for cyber capabilities and the UK's new nuclear submarine programme. 11 million for mental health care for veterans to mark the centenary of the armistice which brought World War I to an end. 1 million to fund school trips to World War I battlefields. 1.7 million in Holocaust education programmes to mark the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in northern Germany. Business and digital. New 2% digital services tax on UK revenues of big technology companies from April 2020. Profitable companies with global sales of more than 500 million will be liable. Private finance initiative. Contracts to be abolished in future. New Centre of Excellence to manage existing deals in the taxpayer's interest. Annual investment allowance to be increased from 200,000 to 1 million for 2 years. Contribution of small companies to apprenticeship levy to be reduced from 10% to 5%. Business rates bill for firms with a rateable value of 51,000 or less to be cut by third over 2 years. Measure to benefit 90% of independent shops, pubs and restaurants, cutting bills by 88,000, not 88, 8,000. 900 million in business rates relief for small businesses and 650 million to rejuvenate high streets. New 100% mandatory business rates relief for all lavatories made available for public use. Extending changes to the way self-employment status is taxed from the public sector to medium and large private companies from 2020. Education and health. A confirmation of an extra 20.5 billion for the NHS over the next 5 years, and minimum extra 2 billion a year for mental health services, new mental health service centres providing support in every accident and emergency unit in the country, more mental health ambulances and 24-hour mental health crisis hotline, an extra 700 million for councils, for care for the elderly and those with disabilities, 10 million for air ambulances, a one-off 400 million bonus to help schools buy the little extras they need this year, funding for 10 university enterprise zones. We're nearly there. We've just got 3 more left. Transport, infrastructure and culture. A 30 billion package for England's roads, including repairs to motorways and potholes. a 30% growth in infrastructure spending, opening the use of e-passport gates at airports currently available to people from Europe to those from the USA, Canada, New Zealand, Australia and Japan. Air passenger duty to be indexed in line with inflation. Environment and energy. A new tax on plastic packaging, which does not contain 30% recyclable material. No tax on takeaway coffee cups, but to be reconsidered if the industry doesn't make enough progress. 60 million for planting trees in the UK, 10 million to deal with abandoned waste sites. Next topic, nations and regions. An additional 950 million for the Scottish Government, 550 million for the Welsh Government, and 320 million for a Northern Ireland executive in the period of 2020 to 2021. New city and growth deals from Belfast, North Wales and the Tay Cities area, which includes the city of Dundee and Perth, as well as Angus and the north part of Fife. 2 million for Belfast to help recover from August's Primark fire. 70 million to develop the Defence of National Rehabilitation Centre near Loughborough. And that's it, folks, based on the BBC's. If you have any particular interest in those points, go and have a look up. I did. Particularly for me is interesting the tax on plastic packaging. So I've read an article on The Guardian here that says the government is to introduce a new tax on plastic packaging as it seeks to ramp up efforts to tackle the scourge of litter and waste from single-use plastics. It was confirmed in the budget. Food and drink companies will be taxed on plastic packaging that does not include at least 30% recycled content, in a drive to reduce dependence on virgin plastics that are difficult or impossible to recycle, such as black food trays and plastic straws. But this new tax, subject to consultation, is not due to come into force until April 2020. It will cover plastics produced in the UK, as well as those that have been imported. And now I have to just confirm this word before we go on.
Scourge.
Scourge. Scourge. In efforts to tackle the scourge of litter and waste from single-use plastics. That is England's budget 2018 autumn.